And are the IT decision makers saying to the vendors, look, deliver me content via social media because that's the way that's the medium I'm going to use?
Yeah, I mean, particularly the final decision makers seem really more hooked into social media than others.
What are the final decision makers as compared to non-final decision makers?
Well, I mean, there are three categories of people in the user organisations. There are people who get involved in influencing choice. There are people who actually narrow the choice down and the ultimate final decision maker. Certainly that last group are far greater users of social media than the other two.
So the people who are actually making the decisions are therefore the budget holders, one might assume, are the ones that are making greater use of social media than the information gatherers.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we ask those people, given that vendors have got all this information, all this content, shall we say, available, by what means should they make it more accessible to them, the final decision maker? And whilst the first choice they gave was do more small face-to-face events,
right,
a really rather expensive way of distributing content, the second most favoured was to use social media more.
So there is a happy balance there, but I guess this is not an easy exercise. The vendors are going to struggle with this, aren't they?
Customers of ours are using content in a different way, a more engaging way, because audience engagement is also a really key factor these days in measuring the success of a campaign. So, to engage, while social media offers both parties, the vendor on this side, say, and the IT purchaser on your side, a really low barrier to entry. I'm an IT purchaser, I can go via social media to not to communicate, but just to go and investigate a vendor.
Indeed.
Without necessarily giving any information about who I am or to make it plain that I'm there. And similarly for the vendor, given the budget restrictions that they're suffering these days, you can see how being able to distribute or to make available content and potentially engage, to drag people towards them. I use the term a lot, the orbit of influence. They want to get people hooked into their orbit of influence, and because remember that lead generation is the number one thing.
The Harvard Business Review is talking a lot about, in their latest blog, about this very maelstrom effect that we're seeing between technology companies and their market that they're trying to attract, and the role that social media plays, and how difficult that process is that you've just touched on. And I guess there's a need to do some more research.
There is. I mean, there is some interesting, some question marks arise from what we've learned so far in this research. That, amongst all the aspects that they regard as being important performance indicators around a campaign, generating social media chatter or conversations in the market at large isn't something that they regard as being a key factor. Now, when we look at the results from the IT purchaser side of things, we asked about whether or not those individuals share content that they've acquired. It was a large percentage of those final decision makers say that they share information via their social media accounts.
Which, if you think that the circle isn't quite virtuous, it isn't quite complete, and that's the opportunity for the vendor to get that right.
That's right. Why aren't they more interested in the generic chatter that they're creating by their campaign, given that, from what we've learned from the purchaser side, 73% of senior purchasers are just redistributing content.